Sorry, mic pack didn't want to turn on for me for a second. Good morning, everybody. We are super excited to see you all this morning. If you're a visitor, we just want to say welcome and thank you so much for coming here today and being here with us for worship. We hope that we make you feel welcome and feel like this is a church home that you can stay at if that is what you're looking for. And if you're just passing through, we are so glad to see you here this morning. So, when we think about people in our lives who we want to be like, when we think about people who set a great example for us and people that we strive to be like, we typically think of people who are some of the best at what they do. And when I kind of think of this idea, my mind goes back. I was not alive when this commercial aired, but I have seen it. Is the old 1992 Gatorade commercials where they are trying to say, hey, if you drink Gatorade, you are going to be like Mike. You're going to be like Michael Jordan. And this was a huge campaign, and this was a huge mindset in the 90s, is, hey, we want to be like Michael Jordan. He was this great upcoming and established NBA star, starting in the 80s, going into the 90s, and this mindset was super prevalent while he was on the court. We see that there is this song, hey, be like Mike, and it is the center of this commercial. And it's these clips of Michael playing basketball, kids playing basketball against Michael, and then, of course, you have the great label facing the camera, glass bottle, Gatorade, and he's drinking it there at the end. We see songs about it. We see that, hey, there are even movies about this. There are two movies, Like Mike and Like Mike 2, starring Lil Bow Wow. Great movies. Not sure why they didn't get any Oscar nominations. There we go. But we see that this is a huge mindset, and it's something that is still prevalent today. I looked it up this morning just to double check. I looked up the price for Air Jordan 1s, like the very first line that came out. The cheapest price that I saw, and these were shoes that were not in great condition, were $10,000. Yeah, that is a lot of money. And even still, if they do remakes of the shoes, if they remake Jordan 1s just in the retro colorway, those things can go up to thousands of dollars. These things are expensive. If you get the pristine Air Jordans, the very first one, I think I saw six figures for one of these pairs of shoes. This is a mindset because, hey, Michael Jordan is one of, if not the greatest basketball player of all time. We want to be like him. This mindset was prevalent. And just to prove why we want to be like him, and he was the greatest, I have a list of everything that he got, all the awards he got while he was playing. Six-time NBA champion, six-time NBA Finals MVP, five-time NBA MVP, NBA Defensive Player of the Year, NBA Rookie of the Year, 10-time leading scorer, 3-time steals leader, 14-time NBA All-Star, 3-time NBA All-Star Game MVP, 10-time All-NBA First Team, one-time All-NBA Second Team, 9-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, NBA All-Rookie First Team. And then continuing on, his number has been retired by the Chicago Bulls, the Miami Heat, and he is a 2-time Olympic gold medal winner. When we look at Michael Jordan's career, we're able to see that he is one of, if not the best, in his field in the sport of basketball. And the mindset of, hey, we want to be like Mike was super prevalent. Kids looked up to him. Kids wanted to play like him. Kids wanted his merch. Kids wanted Gatorade. Gatorade's marketing was super successful because of this Be Like Mike. Nike, when they put the Air Jordan out, just wanted to make $3 million in 3 years. They made over $100 million in the first year because people wanted to be like Mike. And it's not just in basketball. This is a mindset that goes forward in every sport and every field. You can look at it, football, baseball, hockey. There are people who stand out because of how great they were. And when we look at our own personal lives, the people that we look up to are the people that we view as great in their field. When we look at the teachers that we loved growing up, these are the people who stood out because, A, they knew how to teach the subject and teach it well. The way they taught connected with us. And they might have given us that little bit of extra attention to help us pursue that interest. When you get into college, the professors that you like the most are the ones who know the subject well, who are willing to invest time with you, who are willing to study with you. As you step into your career field, the people that you like and the people that you look up to and the people that you want to be like are the people who are established in their job, know how to do it well, and are willing to guide and mentor you. The people we look up to consistently are the people who we see and think are the best in their field and the best at what they do. And we have this be like Mike mentality. Hey, when it comes to ministry, one of the people that I think of is right across town over in River Chase. I think of Malvin Sanders. Malvin is great at what he does. I look up to him and I have this mindset of, hey, I might not be Malvin, but I want to be like Malvin. And I'm sure if I asked Drew, there were preachers growing up that he said, hey, I want to be like that preacher. And I'm sure this mindset goes on for each and every one of us. And it shouldn't just stick to the ball court, ball field. It shouldn't just stick to our workplace. This is a mindset that carries over into our faith as well. We all have this mindset of, hey, I grew up watching my mom and dad raise me in the church. When I think about a faithful Christian, I think about my dad. I want to be like my dad in Christ. I want to be like David Mann. We also have these other figures. Like I said, I mentioned Malvin, but there are other people in the church growing up that I want to be like. L.G. White is a great guy. I'm sure none of you know him, but he was an elder where I grew up. I love L.G. White. I want to be like L.G. And you can fill in that blank for yourself in just about everything that you do, whether it's work, whether it's life, but importantly, in the church. And when we take this mindset into the church, we can see that this carries over. And I want us to stop and look at a book that has this mindset. And so if you want, let's turn over to 3 John. That's going to be where our study is taking place today. And when we look at this idea of 3 John, when we look at this book, the message that is going on is John is writing to one individual, this guy named Gaius, and he is commending Gaius for the faith that he is displaying and saying, you are doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is perfect for the work that needs to be going on. And I think it gives us a great example of what a simple, everyday faith looks like and what we can do to be like Mike, or in this case, be like Gaius. So I want to thank Riley for reading verses 2 through 4 for us, but I want us to pick up in 3 John verses 5 through 8. Beloved, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are, who testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. For they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. Now, when we dive into this book, we realize, hey, there's not a lot here. This is a very short book. In my Bible, it takes up 1 page. I'm assuming it does the same in yours. But in this short little paragraph where we see John praising Gaius for what he's doing, we get a fair few principles for how we can live out our faith and do things to be like Gaius in our faith. So I want us to dive into those. How do we be like Gaius? How do we have that be like Gaius mentality? How do we make our faith something livable, something to strive after, and something that is going to be great? Well, when we look at the things that Gaius is doing, the first thing that we see John mention that Gaius does is that Gaius is living his faith. It's not something that is confined to the walls of where they are worshiping. It is not something that he goes and he prays in private and doesn't go out and do anything about it. Gaius' faith is something that is lived, something that is taken, that he takes action to pursue, and something that he does every day. And we see that addressed in verse 5. Beloved, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts. What we see going on is Gaius is not just confining it to the walls of where they worship. Everything that Gaius does is in service to the greater purpose of helping the church grow. You see, we're going to dive into this in a little bit, but what we see and what we kind of pick up from the context and the subtext of what's going on in 3 John is Gaius is in kind of like what would be considered a flyover city at this point. Gaius is living in a city that is kind of like the halfway point or a place you spend the night on your way to get to another destination. And so Gaius is kind of serving as this host, as kind of this midpoint stay for a lot of people. But what we see Gaius doing is everything he does in his city is to serve this purpose. He's showing love to the people that are coming in, those guests of his. He's showing love, making sure that they are comfortable, making sure that they feel welcomed. Everything that Gaius does is to serve that, show love to the people who are passing through his city. Now, what does that look like? We're going to get into some more specifics about what that looks like here in a second. So the next thing that we see Gaius doing is he's making people feel welcome. We see this kind of hit on in verse 6. Who testified to your love before the church, you will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. What we see Gaius doing is as these people are coming in, walking on their way to go to wherever they're trying to spread the gospel, Gaius is making people feel welcome. He's going out, he's greeting people, shaking their hand, bringing them into his home, giving them a meal to eat, giving them a place to lay down. All that Gaius is doing is something that we would do for our guests that come to our home today. He's treating them like people. He's making sure that they feel loved, making sure that they feel cared for, and making sure that they have the attention that they need. What we see Gaius do is something simple, something we would do every day for the people in our lives who come and visit us, the people that he interacts with every day. He's treating them the way that we would like to be treated. He's making sure that they feel comfortable, making sure that they feel welcomed, and making sure that they feel loved. And the last thing that we see Gaius do is we see that he is an encourager. We see this in verse 7. For they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing for the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. What we see Gaius doing in his work here is he is being an encourager, and he is making sure that he is supporting these people. These people are traveling one place to another to make disciples. And what Gaius is doing is he's this midpoint kind of break for them. They're on their journey either to or from one place or another, and these people are going to be tired. These people are going to have just traveled a long way, and these people might not be in the best place mentally. And what Gaius is doing by opening up his home, making sure that these people feel welcomed, living out his faith day by day to help these people, is he's being an encouragement to them. He's making sure that they have a way to feel safe, a way to feel like what they're doing is mattering. What Gaius is probably doing is he's sitting down, having a meal with them, saying, hey, how are things going? What are the things that are happening in your life? Hey, I'm sure you're doing a great job. I'm sure that everything you're doing is mattering, and I'm sure that what you're doing is for the benefit of the kingdom. And what we see from these 3 simple points of Gaius' faith is what it takes to be a good Christian, what it takes to have a faith that is going to make an impact, and what it takes to be like Gaius. First things first is we have to go out and we have to make sure that our faith is not something that's confined to the walls of this building. So what does that look like? What does that mean for us today? Well, that means, first of all, everything is about getting someone to Christ. It's about our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with God. Everything else is in service to that relationship and showing other people that relationship. And so how you act in school, how you act in your workplace is going to be different. While other people are at the water cooler gossiping, I'm not sure if that's a thing. I've never worked in like a normal office. I'm not sure. You're not going to be a part of that. You're going to be encouraging the person who's down on their luck. That person in school who's sitting by themselves. You are going to be the person who reaches out to them and shows them the love, shows them that, hey, they're cared for, and shows them, hey, it's not only me that cares for you, it's Jesus. We have to live our faith. We have to make others feel welcomed. Feel like, hey, you have a place, and that place is with me, and that place is with Jesus. and you have to encourage them. You see, welcoming others and showing them your faith is something that, yes, it is helpful and it is a great first step. But also, we have to encourage them when we're showing them what this faith looks like, when we're welcoming them. Hey, give them that little push. Hey, what are you thinking? Where's your head out? Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about baptism? Have you thought about, hey, how you're impacting the kingdom? Being an encourager doesn't just mean saying good things. Sometimes it means giving people a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a push into the deep end and saying, hey, you can do this. I'm proud of you. What are you thinking? What can I do for you? What can I do to help you? And this is exactly what we kind of get is the idea of what Gaius is doing. Everything he's doing is to serve the people who are passing through his city to carry the gospel. He's bringing them into his home, welcoming them, making them feel like they are at their own home, making them feel like they have a place they could stay forever and be taken care of. And he's encouraging them as they go on their way to carry the gospel. And that's exactly what we see John says, is, hey, these people come with great reports from you, saying that you're doing awesome things, saying that you're pushing them to be better, and saying that you're giving them an encouraging message on their way to spread God's word. And what we see Gaius doing is a very simple, very easy way to make our faith something that we can do and something that we can do every day very easily. But 3 John is not just a study of how to be like Mike. There isn't just this one awesome silver lining that, hey, everything's great, Gaius is perfect, and Gaius is making everything in the church work great. There's also this other guy that John talks about in this book, and he is not so great, and we kind of get this idea of, hey, to be like Gaius, these are the things you have to do. But also, when we look at this second guy, when we look at this guy named Diotrephes, we have some things to avoid to help us to be like Gaius. So let's dive into this book a little bit further and kind of figure out some of the things that we can avoid to help us be more like Gaius and to avoid being like Diotrephes. So 3 John, picking up in verse 9. I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. And not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers and also stops those who want to and puts them out of the church. We see that John starts off this book with great praises for Gaius and the things that he's doing. But he follows it up with this idea that, hey, Gaius is having some pushback against what he's doing from this guy named Diotrephes. And what we get from John and what we get from the scripture is that Diotrephes is exactly opposed to what Gaius is doing. Exactly opposed to how we make our faith something simple, make our faith something great that we can live out every day. And so what I want us to do is dive into Diotrephes' kind of faith and his actions and see maybe the things that we can avoid that will make us stronger in our pursuit and in how we live out our faith. So how to not be like Diotrephes. The first thing first is do not put yourself first. The vibe that we kind of get from what John is saying is that Diotrephes views himself as a leader within his own congregation. But what we can see is that Diotrephes is not a great leader. What he's looking for is the benefit of himself, the benefit of his own position, and the benefit of what he can get out of it for himself. What Diotrephes isn't doing as a leader in the church is protecting the sheep, strengthening the sheep, making sure that his people are taken care of, making sure that his church community is shining the light of Jesus where they're at. He's not making sure that the church is growing. Everything that Diotrephes does is in service of his own self. And this is directly opposed to what Gaius is doing. We see in verses 5 through 8, everything that Diotrephes does is about making people who are traveling through his city, bringing the word of God, bringing letters from the apostles, bringing words of wisdom, making them feel welcome, encouraging them, is all about putting others, putting the church first, and putting the growth of the church first. But Diotrephes, his faith and his actions are about him. Hey, I want to be in charge of this community. Hey, I don't want to take this reproof from John. Hey, these letters that are coming in, they're not really worth anything. Let's not read them. Hey, these missionaries that are traveling through our city, they're not preaching the truth. Let's not have anything to do with them. Everything Diotrephes does is about him, his power, and it's counterintuitive, the exact opposite of what we should be doing if we want this be like Mike, be like Gaius attitude. We cannot put ourselves first. We have to put the needs of others, we have to put the needs of the church before ourselves. The next thing that we see Diotrephes doing that is exactly counter to what Gaius is doing is he is belittling others. He is making sure that others are not being lifted up in the church. We see that John mentions that he writes a letter to them, but at the end of verse 9, Diotrephes does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. Diotrephes, the leader of this church, thinks that he is such a great guy, such a stand-up dude, that, hey, the apostles who walked side by side with Jesus for 3 years, they don't know anything. These guys aren't worth anything. Yes, they did help establish the church, but their time is kind of gone. They don't know what they're talking about anymore. The faith has kind of progressed since then. We don't need to listen to them anymore. And what we see that Diotrephes is doing is tearing down not only leaders within the church, but the people in his own congregation. You see, Diotrephes would not just be talking bad about John or the other apostles. Diotrephes is likely talking bad about Gaius and some other people in his congregation who are pursuing faith the right way. Diotrephes is putting others down to lift himself up and make sure that he is the head of the church, make sure that he has the power that he wanted. And this is counterintuitive to what we need to do to have this be like Mike, be like Gaius faith. Like we said, it's all about others, putting others before ourselves, making them feel welcomed and making them feel encouraged. And if we're belittling someone, if we're trying to push down on someone to lift ourselves up, we're pushing them out of our homes, we're pushing them out of our lives, and we're doing the exact opposite of what it takes to be a good faith, be a good Christian, and have a good stand-up faith. And the next thing that we see Diotrephes doing is he's turning away from other Christians, and this is not something that we can do. Continuing on in verse 9, John says he's talking wicked nonsense, and then the second half of the verse he says, and not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers and also stops those who want to and puts them out of the church. What we see Diotrephes doing is, again, in service of his own power. He wants control of people. He doesn't want people coming in and preaching truth, preaching this idea of love that he's not living out so well. And what Diotrephes is doing is, instead of trying to counter what they're saying, trying to have a conversation with them, he says, no, we don't need you, just keep on moving. Diotrephes is pushing other Christians away, pushing himself away from the church. And this is not what we need to do if we want to have this be like Mike, be like Gaius faith. What we see Gaius doing is exactly opposite of this, is he is bringing the church to him. These people who are passing through, these missionaries who are passing through, he does everything to make sure that he can take care of them, make sure that he has time with them, and spends time with other Christians. And so to have this be like Mike, this be like Gaius faith that is going to help us, we can't put ourselves first. Everything has to be in service to God, in service to Jesus, in service to the church, in our greater mission of being like Jesus and showing truth to the world. If it becomes about us, if it becomes about our status within the church, if it becomes about how great I can be, we're starting down the road of Diotrephes. We're starting down the road of, hey, it's about me, it's about what I want, and it's not about this greater good. If we start belittling others, we're going to do exactly the opposite of what Gaius is doing. Gaius was welcoming people into his home, making sure that they had a place to stay, a place to be comfortable, a place to sleep, a place where they felt like they were at home. And if we belittle others, we're never going to have this safe, comfortable space that can feel like home for people. We can't belittle others, because if we do, we're doing the exact opposite of what Gaius does. And we can't turn away from other Christians or push other Christians away. What we need to do is we need to encourage them, help lift them up, give them that push they need to continue on their missionary journey, to help them shine light in our own communities, to help them have this Gaius faith. Because my guess is that John is writing this letter to Gaius because Gaius hasn't been getting some of that welcoming feeling himself. Odds are Diotrephes is kind of belittling him, pushing him away. And what we see is Gaius needs this encouragement, needs this push from John, and that's exactly what this letter is for Gaius. And we see that this push from John and this push that Gaius is giving others is not only encouraging himself, making his faith something great, making his faith something that stands out to us 2,000 years later, but it's something that's making his community stronger, making his church community stronger. So, what I want us to do today is I want us to figure out this idea of, hey, who in your faith do you want to be like? There are people that we look at today, we look at every day in our faith, whether it's someone we grew up with, whether it's someone who's in this building today with us, and we say, hey, I want to be like that person. Find the things about them that are great. Find the things and try to imitate them. But I also want to challenge you. Let's be like Gaius. Let's make sure that our faith is not just something that shows here in these walls, but something that shows outside to our community and help show others the way. Let's make sure that we're creating a welcoming environment to people. And guess what? It's not just in these walls as well. We have to make these friendships, we have to make our relationship a welcoming place for these people. We have to make them feel comfortable outside these walls before they're comfortable inside of these walls. And once we've made them feel comfortable, let's start giving them that encouragement. Let's start making them feel as though that they have a safe place, that they are on the right track, and that they are doing the right things. Let's have a faith like Gaius. Let's be like Gaius. I'm not sure where you're at in your faith walk today. I'm not sure if you are someone who is just starting their faith journey and has decided that, hey, I know what Jesus has done for me. I know the awesome things that he has done for me, and I want to join him, have a relationship with him, and have a relationship with God. Well, if that's you and you've been studying and you want to be baptized into Christ, the water is ready, and we're ready to welcome you with open arms to our family. But if you're someone who is part of the church already and you've been struggling with your faith, if you need prayers, if you need love from the church, and you need any encouragement, we're here to love you, wrap our arms around you, and pray with you. If you need anything from the church this morning, please come now as we stand and as we sing.